All right, I guess it'll be my turn to start the episode because it is my topic. So, welcome. I'm Matthew. I'm joined here by Shu and Michael, and this is the 53rd meeting of the Junto Club. So, in the 1700s, Benjamin Franklin organized a group of his friends to kind of create a club for mutual improvement where they discuss science, philosophy, politics, business, and other interesting topics of the day, to kind of learn new views, learn new things. And we're sort of trying to imitate that a little bit. So we come on here, we talk. At least one person tries to research and bring a topic that they sort of speak a little bit about, so we learn some new things. Um, and that's basically it. We usually start off with Shu, sometimes someone else, but Shu likes to bring in a quote. For a long time, it was always a Benjamin Franklin quote, but he kind of ran out of those. So now we just bring in a quote in general to discuss. What do you have for us today, Shu?
Today's quote is unspoken expectations are premeditated resentments, end quote, by Neil Strauss. What do
I
you think?
like it. I like it. I think it's very accurate. It really touches on that whole communication is the most important thing in relationship things. I feel like
Mhm.
that's definitely something that happens where people get annoyed that something they wanted isn't happening and then they become resentful, right? So
Yeah,
it's a very common thing. It's honestly an issue that's from the outside it always looks like really dumb, but if you're in a relationship, sometimes it's hard because you don't feel like you want to bring something up. So, but it's better to just do it early rather than let things
yeah,
build up resentment, right? So,
yeah.
Yeah,
Especially when I'm expecting my Ed to be on time every time, but he's not, so it's pissed me off every time.
ooh,
that's right.
we
Yeah,
were.
well, you gotta just tell me.
Yeah, has Shu ever mentioned? We've never
I
made
know.
fun of you for being late. That's true.
I guess it's my fault then.
See, here's the thing. We joke that we're like, haha, you're late. What he missed the fact that we were actually being serious, just trying to play it off as a joke. He thought we were joking for real.
That's
But this
Yeah,
right.
was just trying to be, we're trying to be more subtle about it, but
yeah.
Subtlety is never a good thing. You
you're a
just gotta be,
comedian. I thought
yeah,
comedians love subtlety.
no, just right on the nose. That's what works.
Okay.
All right, go ahead. What about you, Mike? Thoughts?
No, I basically agree with Matt. I mean, it's true that communication and explicit communication can help
Mm-hmm.
sometimes not in comedy, but in life.
Mm,
So,
yeah, sounds good. Yeah, yeah. And this is very much like when I first read it. Oh wow, it's like I like it because it's personally for me too. I'm not super good with communication, so I think this is almost serving as like note to self, like especially when you relations too, right? And in business too, even with like working with your teams and stuff like that, it's always good to uh explicitly express your expectation or something things like that, right? So you can work together. Yeah, it's better. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
uh,
All right. So before we start recording, we were actually talking about physical 100s,
So we're gonna circle
which
back into it. I'll
yeah.
describe it
yeah.
real quick. So
Well,
physical
from my understanding, basically the show of the physical superiority of Asian descendants. So
that is not quite what the show's about. They do say they're trying to find the perfect physical specimen is the premise of the show. And it
yes,
happens to be 98% Korean people, but that's just because they make the show in Korea.
of
So,
course, of course.
so they have a good excuse for that. Um, if you haven't seen it, the basic premise is imagine Squid Games, but all the competitions are like physical things, like athletic and physical performance, and then they bring in like a bunch of different like athletes from different sports. They'll bring in people who like do different jobs, like firefighters or like military people, and then they'll just bring in random people. Like there'll be like an actor who works out a lot and like plays
Mm,
action heroes and stuff, and so they just bring in like everyone. They try to get like a super broad spread of people, and then there's 100 of them, and they just go through a long series of competitions, sometimes individual, sometimes as team, just eliminating people down. It's actually really exciting to watch. It gets you hyped
yeah.
to work out. If you're looking for motivation for exercise, I recommend it. If you enjoyed Squid Games, I'd recommend it because I really feel like it captures that vibe, but in like a more reasonable, we're not killing the people way. They just get eliminated. You know, yeah. So
Mhm.
you asked because you look Shu, and they even have like a good amount of girls, and you asked how they do that.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, they are women are disadvantaged. That's true, and the show acknowledges, right? And they'll talk about it, but they do a good job of like trying to balance it to some degree because some competitions, I think the majority probably strength is an advantage, but some size, involve more like endurance or size. Like one time they had to hang from a bar for as long as possible for sort of like a test to like rank them. That's
Hmm.
obviously going to benefit people who are smaller. Anything that's got a lot of running, endurance, the bigger you are, the harder that is. Um, so it depends a lot. They had ones where they had to do rope climbing, right? That's another thing. If you're a really big guy, you're going to be really good at the stuff when you have to move a bunch of sandbags or wrestle someone. But climbing a rope's going to be a bitch, right?
Yeah, but what about fighting? Because it looks like it's have the USC event type thing. So how does women fight with guys too?
They do sometimes. Most of the
Okay.
time. So it depends. So one thing is I think people are a little
I mean,
fair.
from my perspective, I it's physical because when I'm just looking at videos, right? Just like these guys are really big, right? How even skinny guys, how do because in my martial art training experience, I train with some women too, and they are actually a lot better than me, right? So there's no way I can fight with them, yeah, stuff fights. But this is like some guys just look super big, right? How do you
So
fight those?
so the close they have there's no true fighting, right? But there's sort of
Mm,
wrestling like events. I think the main one is they have a thing where you 1v1 and you have to like be the last person holding a medicine ball and you can kind of
mm,
get different arenas. Now some people win it by just literally grabbing the ball and just running the whole time and just staying if they're fast enough to just stay away, you can win it like
mm,
that. But when they kind of let participants select and most guys most of the time don't pick like a small woman to try to get an easy win. So it's actually pretty good that usually like the girls are matched up with girls for these 1v1s, and then guys usually pick semi-appropriate guys. Actually, there was in season two, I mean, I'll spoil it, but one girl picked a guy who was bigger than her too. And then she still won, right? Like she was doing the challenge and then she won it. So I was like, oh shit, because I didn't think she was gonna beat it, but she had
what was the challenge?
to hold on to the medicine ball, like to wrestle for the medicine ball.
Oh,
But
okay.
she had
So,
MMA background, so she was like using like jujitsu and wrestling to sort of like get an advantage. And the other guy was bigger than her, so like stronger, but he didn't have like that experience. So
Uh-huh.
she managed to like steal it out. It was pretty good.
Uh, okay. All right.
hmm.
So you
My,
combine like you mix it's a combination of people usually aren't intentionally just targeting the weakest. Like most guys don't want to go on TV and like pick the woman who's half their size to like fight. And then, they mix up what you have to do. So it's not all about just like raw
mm,
strength.
I see, I see.
So
Strategy, mind games, some kind of thing.
yeah, so for the keep the medicine ball, is there a single medicine ball?
Yes.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yes.
So,
Yeah,
So
I can see you like inspiration to work out because all these are really fit people.
mhm.
yeah, they're fit people. They're doing a fun competition. They get these really elaborate like arenas to like set up to do stuff. But
Hmm.
they'll build basically like like movie sets because like depends what they're doing. But sometimes they'll sort of have like a scenario where they'll have to do something and they just build out like a movie set to like do this game in where they have to run around and lift something heavy or move a bunch of stuff or whatever.
Mm, wow. Yeah, it's like Hunger Games too.
Mhm.
Yeah, kinda.
Damn. Well, well, I guess bring that to back to is like South Koreans. Damn, they are really getting really into like a lot of like these entertainment stuff. Like K-pop is really big. The whole industry, and K-drama is really big back in the day already. I used to watch them a lot and cry a
Yeah.
lot just watching them. But
Mhm.
but that's why I don't watch it anymore. But like these these Netflix shows, like game shows, stuff like this, like South Korean. I mean, I guess they're killing it, kind of in a way, right?
Yeah, no, I think they're doing a good job of like exporting some of their culture, right? Making
Mm-hmm.
some sales, getting some stuff that's pretty popular. They have some popular media, so it's a well-made show. I'm not going to spoil everything, but I was the first season especially like they did some they have like multiple rounds, right? Where they eliminate people, and like I said, there's some 1v1s, there's some teams. As they got to the end, the way they designed like the groups and structure of the challenges for like the last couple finales was really clever. I'm not going to spoil it. You need to
Uh,
watch it, but they were
yeah.
really smart about how they rotated things around and like shit did team stuff to both like reward specialization and like
Wow. Yeah.
generality. Like they really put thought into it when
Yeah.
it's well designed.
Yeah, and it's definitely a lot interesting than just looking at some of the previews. Looks like a lot interesting than a lot of like game shows like currently
Yeah.
in US, right? Like the Ninja whatever something like that, and then it's other obstacle game and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's more, I mean, it's more reality TV show than Ninja Warrior, right? Like,
Hmm.
it's not just run the competition, that's it. And it's much more elaborate than say like a CrossFit Games. It's not just like people don't just go up and say, okay, like power clean your weight, the most
Yeah.
person who does the weight in 30 seconds wins, right? Or a minute.
Hmm.
It's not just like that. So, all
Yeah. Well, that's cool. All right.
right.
I,
Now that everyone has their new hot TV show
That's right.
recommendation, was there any other mini topics y'all wanted to bring up?
what about the election? Like, what do you think is going on now? Like,
Feel like
it's
it's just
coming out in
waiting for
2024, right? It's
November.
already
Yeah.
April is coming, right? So it's only a few months away.
Yeah. But it's gonna be Trump and Biden and it's gonna be I mean, I
Yeah,
guess we're waiting to see Trump's running mate. Is that the only thing that's sort of left?
that could be. Yeah. Who he has to
Yeah.
pick a VP because literally Mike Pence came out and said he shouldn't be president, which is kind of phenomenal. I actually feel like that doesn't get a lot of attention
Mhm.
because has there ever been a case where like the VP you picked for your and the VP who served with you for your first term came out and said you should not be president for like another term?
No,
Like that's kind of crazy.
no,
So he's not going to be picking Mike Pence, pretty sure. Yeah. There's always
no,
the chance that either Trump or Biden dies. Probability is not too low,
no, that's fair.
So there's
But it
still,
doesn't matter though, right? Trump is going to be the president probably. I mean, it's actually no, the probably is super high. I would say nine, yeah, 100%.
You think it's 100% probable that he wins?
do you want to
Yeah.
make a bet with those odds?
Yes,
I'll
actually.
give you $1 if Trump
Uh-huh.
wins, and you give me $1,000 if Biden wins. Because now, since it's 100%, you're just
Yeah,
making free money.
that's right.
Sorry, I'll bump it. I'll give you $10 for $1,000.
Ugh.
We'll see if you feel confident about those odds.
But there's no nothing for me to bet. It's only $10.
We can talk about bets on the election later. That actually might be fun
Mm.
to do. But yeah, I haven't really been digging into it, but I'm gonna throw out an early prediction, which is that Biden has an advantage for two reasons.
Mm-hmm.
He's the incumbent and the economy's doing well.
Is it?
So an incumbent in a relatively good economy losing is unlikely, but we'll see.
Mm. Okay.
No. I mean, I guess is inflation still through the roof? I mean, I know the market has been going up like over the last couple of months pretty
I
good.
mean, inflation's higher than it was for like the last decade, but it's way
Yeah.
down from its peak, right? It's like around 3% now. And
Yeah.
our sort of ideal inflation's like 2%, but we were like 7 or 8 for like a little bit, right? So
Hmm.
like inflation's way down. The GDP is growing more than inflation. There was like 2 years ago, people were like really frothing about a recession because like technically we just barely had 2 quarters that didn't have growth in GDP, which is like technically a recession.
Hmm.
And I feel like there's been sort of like a media narrative that we're like about to have a recession that people almost, it seemed like some people almost wanted it. They're like, we need it, they wanted a recession to happen for the story. It just didn't quite happen.
Hmm.
Mm.
Unemployment still at like 50-year lows. Like it hasn't been, we've been had really low unemployment for a long time. Wages are up. Now, of course, wages and GDP being higher when you have inflation is not like as impressive. I'm not saying like we're having massive, wage growth for
Like a
the average.
renaissance, yes.
Yeah, but like, wages are up. Yeah. So
Yeah.
overall, the economy is doing pretty solid. We had a kind of a disaster coming off the end of Trump's term. Mostly not his fault, although I don't think he handled it the best. But, the Biden administration has done a good job sort of like getting things under control and having what they call the soft landing, right? Like
Mm.
we increased interest rates to cool inflation, which often does cause a recession, but they managed to not cause a recession and not cause unemployment to spike because those are the usual things. The was it the Federal Reserve controls interest rates to sort of try to maintain low inflation, like a certain amount of low inflation, and try to keep unemployment low. But those are sort of
Mm,
like opposing goals where usually, adjusting things usually makes one worse and the other better. So they sort of manage to sort of balance it and, get us to a decent place. It's not perfect. No one's saying the economy's like the best it's ever been, but it's like pretty solid, right?
Mhm.
okay.
All right. Well,
All
that
right.
was a lot of my
Pre
opinion, but
all right. All right.
but
Good prediction.
there's
Yeah,
a lot
no.
that can happen before November. So this is very much like an early before the race has really started, because yeah, it's going to be a few months and then they'll have like the primaries will wrap up and it'll be official, right? And then it'll sort of be like the election will really kick off. All right, hold on,
Uh,
Michael. Me and Shu gave our opinions. Shu, 100% Trump. Me, I gave a bunch of rambling justification on why, I'm trying to justify my hope that Biden has the advantage. What's your opinion?
I could see Trump winning just because I feel like Biden, there's a lot of people who feel like he is riddled with dementia. Um,
mm,
but and I know Kamala has a very, very low approval rating. So I could see that playing a role. Obviously, a lot of people hate Trump to the point they will vote against him. Um, I'd go 55% Trump right now. But I think
55%.
it's going to depend heavily on his vice presidential pick.
Yeah,
Mm,
yeah,
I
that's
think if
fair.
he picks a, I think if he picks like a reasonable, like, and I don't even know that who this would be, but like a reasonable female,
Nikki
that
Haley, of course. Who else?
I don't think that's going to happen though.
But
So
maybe you never know.
you never know, I guess. But yeah,
Even
I
she
think
want to
if
be
he,
the president.
yeah, I think if he picks someone who's like relatively stable and, and probably like checks another box, like the not, white straight male box, then I think he would probably be in reasonable shape. But I mean,
Okay.
as you say, it's like there's a lot, like one, that pick has to happen, and two, like obviously there's the court cases, the potential for death, like, yeah. So
Actually, and then to me, that's the problem. The court case is actually is going to help Trump. The tensions.
yeah, it's
Any news is like, and even bad news. Bad news is actually good for you too. Like
yeah. Any
any
press
news
is
is good
good
for you.
press. Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, any press is good press for you. So
Yeah.
that's
I
one of the
do
reasons he's just getting way too much attention.
I
Yeah.
do agree that some of the cases for sure are going to help him. I like some of the states that um are like saying like he legally can't be on the ballot because of like the amendment stuff. They're like super blue states anyway, right? So I'll sidestep whether I feel like that's the legally accurate thing to do. Like if you're just banning him from a blue state he wasn't going to win, like you're helping him, right? He had
Mhm.
zero chance of winning Colorado or whatever it was. But now he gets to talk about how like the courts are coming at him and, play up his
Right.
Yeah,
persecution. And I'm like, oh, this is just helping him. Like
Right.
unless this happens in a swing state, this is helping him.
Yeah.
Florida.
Well, yeah, Florida. Yeah, Florida. That's, I guess,
Is Florida really a swing state? I kind of feel like people talk about Florida as a swing state. When was the last time it wasn't red? It's like it's been a
yeah.
while. Who cares about Florida? Okay, forget about Florida. Georgia is the real swing state. Come on now. Like
hmm
that's a hot swing state. Come on. That was a
hmm
close run in 2020.
hmm
Woo.
No, that was, I mean, it's been close in every, like, because in 2020, it was even the Senate races were like
Yeah,
super close.
yeah.
Yeah.
They
So,
had two because they had the special Senate and then the real Senate. And yeah,
yeah.
they're both tight, and that was, I mean, Georgia flipping blue was the first, I think it was the first time it flipped for a while, after being red, because it used to be considered, like part of like the solid Republican South, and it was
Hmm.
a big flip.
Yeah. Yeah.
If it stays flipped, it's a big thing, but will it stay flipped? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to flip this time.
You don't think so?
Yeah.
Well, I feel like a big part of the flip in Georgia is that Atlanta is like a massive growing city that is becoming like the economic center of the entire Southeast. And like most major economically successful cities, it's very blue. The rest of Georgia is very, very red. But if Atlanta is just so big and it's blue, that have the demographics in Georgia changed since 2020, or because if the trend is still Atlanta's growing faster than the rest of the state, that could just be a demographic trend that becomes hard to overcome, right?
You're right. You
But
are right.
I don't know
You're
what's
you are exactly right because I was in Georgia 2020 and I voted, so that's why we flipped Georgia blue. Now I have left, so
oh
that's why
shit,
that's a main
I
that's a
left too.
main.
I voted in 2020 in Georgia too, and now I
See,
left. Oh
we all
no.
have, so I think we contributed to the flip, so that's the main reason it's not gonna it's turning back to red now since we left.
Okay, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
All right, you got me. It's
Uh,
over. I'm gonna start betting on Trump's win online right after this.
all right.
All right. Well,
All
I'm
right.
sure we'll have plenty to talk about the election in
All
the
right.
next,
Yeah.
Should we go into
7
the real
months.
business? The
The
green
real
tech?
business.
Green
Okay.
tech.
Green tech business?
Oh, I feel like I've already talked a lot this podcast and it's gonna keep being me. So if you don't like my voice, I'm sorry. Yeah, so the main topic is green tech. Kind of just gonna be a hodgepodge of a few things that I think are some of the coolest new things I've seen. I'll just kind of start this with saying green tech in general is a very big industry. Like there's a lot of it's not just research anymore. There's a lot of companies trying to move things, ideas from research to application, and most
Mhm.
of them aren't going to work out. But there's a lot of companies and a lot of money in it. So there's a lot of new things, interesting things coming down the pipeline. And even when it comes to not new and interesting things, wind and solar are just growing at a pretty good pace.
Mm.
Over the last like 10 years, solar especially has kept exceeding expectations and forecasts for like how fast it's going to grow, how fast costs are going to fall. So yeah, those are booming industries. And they're going to keep booming after the Inflation Reduction Act, which is an interesting name for an act that probably didn't do that much to reduce inflation, but did have the largest green energy sort of investment in America's history. So, that all aside, though, let's talk about a few specific cases. So, I'm going to start off with a simple one, but it's sort of beautiful in its simplicity. Cargo ships. All right. They burn an extremely usually most of them burn what they call bunker fuel, so like a really dirty fuel, a lot of emissions. Now, due to the scale of just how much stuff they move, they're not too bad efficiency wise if you compare it to, say, driving something with your car, but they still overall emit a lot of carbon because there's a lot of them moving a shit ton of stuff around the world.
Mm-hmm.
So someone put sails on them. Now, not kind of like old sailboats, a little bit different though. Instead of having like a flexible tarp, if you look at it, it kind of looks like an airplane wing just sticking up. And there's a cargo ship that they actually have run now. This is not like a hypothetical idea. They built it and had it start shipping stuff. And it's like two plane wings that, they can rotate to get the angle right so that as wind blows by, they can rotate it to get the lift and the force to help push it. So they measured this, on a trip around, doing long 1,000-mile trips, and they got on average, they reduced their fuel usage by 14%. On the best days, they got up to fuel reduction 37%. And they're working on another ship that will have 3 of these now instead of 2. So
Mm.
let's say they get a little better. They make them bigger, they put more, they optimize it a little better. Let's say it gets up to like 20% average, which would be pretty nice, right? That's not necessarily game changing. It's not like something that's going to like solve climate change on its own, but it's kind of like ingenious, right? It's one of these like, oh, this is just free energy that if you invest a little bit up front, you can get it, and then you save money on fuel, you
Mhm.
reduce the amount of CO2, these ships are output. It's just a free win, right? And it's literally a century-old technology, right? It's
Mm.
going back to the way ships used to move, but not relying on it entirely, just using it as a supplement.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I feel like I saw this idea like a few years ago, but like I said, now they've actually like built and ran a ship with it, right? So I think it's going to come to a point where a lot of ships will say, why not do this? The why not to do it is sort of, it might make it a little trickier depending on the port and the cranes and stuff. So I think there's still a little bit of a logistics questions of like, do you
You
make it
mean,
so these things can fold down for when they go
yeah,
and like, cranes need to come get the cargoes,
yeah,
the
just looking at this,
containers.
yeah, picture, and it's on that vertically, almost like the wings, like vertically, right? And then they
Yeah.
just, yeah, I was just thinking, how are they gonna go through the Baltimore Bridge?
Yep. That is a problem. I think there are, I
Well,
believe there's
nothing is
some
going through that right now.
Actually,
yeah.
anything can go through it now because it's pretty
Yeah, well,
That's
simple.
that's
true.
a better answer,
That ship was clearing the way. Okay, it's
yeah.
just making progress. Yeah, no, there's
Mm,
some logistic things, but those are, if this saves a lot of money on fuel, people are going to want to do it, and then they'll just build infrastructure that can handle it, which is, I don't think is particularly difficult. It's just different, right? It's just like, oh, it's a little different to have a boat that has this thing stick up higher than normal. You just have to have the stuff ready, or you make them foldable, right? I don't know exactly how hard it is to make it fold or something like that. But
yeah.
yeah, all right.
Okay.
That was number one. Kind of kind of simple. Now let's go on to number two. Okay. Now, if you don't know, so wind and solar have gotten really cheap. Like they're actually the cheapest ways to generate electricity now. You want a natural gas plant for power? Solar panels are cheaper. The problem is they're intermittent. That's cheaper if you're just talking about the panels and the generation. That doesn't include battery or energy storage, so you can, power homes at night, which is pretty important, which is why there's still a ton of natural gas power plants and of course some coal and stuff, and they're not going to go away anytime too soon. So energy storage is a big thing. A lot of people are looking at different ways of doing energy storage, obviously traditional or non-traditional, but batteries is one thing. But there's a few people who are working on heat storage. So you literally store the energy as heat. So here's what these guys did. They basically have a container with like, special grade cement on the outside, and they put a shit ton of graphite. Just graphite, cheap material. It's just a massive graphite block in the inside. And when they have excess electricity, they just pump it through some wires in the graphite and they heat that thing up to like 2000 degrees Celsius. Okay.
Mm,
So that's actually is a very effective way to store heat. Now you wouldn't want it to store like for a month in the future because you're definitely going to like lose a decent percentage. But it's if we're talking about like daily cycles and stuff, right? These sort of things will not lose a meaningful amount of their energy over the course of a day or two. So they're perfectly good for these sort of daily sort of cycling energy things. Now, there are other heat batteries where people do stuff like sand, and the sand gets really hot, and then to extract the heat out, they pump water through, right? And then the water gets heated up, and if you want to make electricity, you got to run a turbine. It's pretty elaborate. So what I think these guys did is very interesting. The graphite, the way they get the energy out of the graphite is through infrared radiation. So they're not running like a pipe with water or something through it. They literally open up a hole in the side and just let infrared radiation, so like a beam of heat, just come out.
mm,
And they can apply that to water if you want, if you need the water to be hot, but they have a better way to generate electricity from it. So they have what they call thermophotovoltaic cells. So it's PV cells, like solar panels, but instead of being optimized for visible light, it's optimized for infrared radiation, which is just infrared and visible light are both electromagnetic radiation, right? They're just on different wavelengths. So it's optimized for that. And they get 40% of the power, which is really good. If you know solar panels, like we don't have anything that beats like 30, and they
mm,
do this in a very clever way. So they've got a lot of clever layers to this. So a normal photovoltaic cell, your electromagnetic radiation goes through it. Some of it will hit and sort of generate electricity, but some of it sort of passes through. So
mhm,
what they do is they put a mirror behind it. So it passes through, hits the mirror, the infrared radiation, goes through the cells again, has another chance to generate electricity. Then, because it's a mirror, it actually beams back into the graphite battery that's open. So they don't recapture. Now, of course, there's still energy loss, right? There's energy that doesn't go turn into electricity and doesn't come back in the battery. But not only do they give a second chance to have it hit the cells, some of it actually gets put back into the battery because of the reflection. And so this lets them turn the heat into electricity with no moving parts. There's no turbine and steam and all that stuff, right? A lot of mechanical complexity. And I'm like, that's actually a really good idea. That's what I think. Okay, I ran it for a really long time. Uh, Questions, thoughts?
So,
no, you just go ahead.
oh, well, I was just trying to think about, so how does it work with it going back? And so I certainly understand it passing through and having a second chance on the reflection to get like generate electricity through the cell, but like how is it going back into the battery?
Yeah, so you can imagine this almost like a container. It's
Hmm.
similar, it's just a big cube. What they do is they open, let's say it's like a foot by foot hole. I don't know if it's exactly that, but it's like something like that. So when they want to get the heat out, they literally open it up.
Hmm.
And so the infrared radiation beams out, kind of like a flashlight.
Yeah.
So, it beams out, they put the cell, of course, right in front of it, because why would they have a gap?
Right.
Um, as close as they can. I guess there's probably some, it's too hot, too close, maybe.
Hmm.
Hits the mirror, and it comes right back at that hole, right?
I gotcha. I gotcha.
So not all of it, but a lot of it will reflect back into it. And so that heat energy goes back into the battery to stay stored and then get emitted again as more electromagnetic radiation due to
Mhm.
the hot graphite. So graphite, it's a pretty commonly available material. It's like really good for this in terms of like heat capacity and heat conductivity, and the fact that it just glows and they get 90% of the heat out being emitted is through the infrared radiation, not like convection or whatever. So,
Hmm. Hmm.
Hmm.
so I've seen stuff on heat batteries and I've always been a little bit like, you know, does that really make sense? Maybe for like your hot water heater at a house where you're like, oh, if you heat up the sand and then you can warm your water, but it kind of didn't really make sense for like putting it back into electricity. To me, maybe someone else will come up with it, but this is a heat battery that I saw. I'm like, wow, this is actually seems like it could be really effective, and particularly effective for. I think the electricity generation is really clever, and that's an important side use, but it's also still going to be good for industrial processes that need heat because there are factories that need to be able to heat things up to like 1,000 degrees Celsius, and
Hmm.
they need a way to do that. And right now they do that via a lot of electricity or a lot of natural gas, like burning, right? So this is a potential way to use something like solar panels charging this, and then it's sort of just directly like, hey, we just ran that electricity into heat, and then when you need it, you let it out and you beam the heat onto what you need. There's just probably would be pipes of water or something to like transmit it to where you need it, but you get the idea.
Right.
Hmm.
Okay. No, that's
And
cool.
is like commercial available? Like, are they
I
being used?
you you know, I don't think they are. I think it's sort of like they're working on it and they have like some prototypes and they might have put them some places. I don't think they're just like selling them for like general commercial usage yet.
Hmm.
Um, honestly, I was digging more into like the tech than the business behind it because that's what more interests me. But I probably should have been better about researching that.
Exactly, because all I care about is money.
Yeah, all you care about is money. Let's see,
I
let's
keep
see. We
making
should.
money.
Why didn't you Google this in the
Otherwise,
background?
otherwise it's just bubbles.
That's true. That's true. I mean, why is this the company? Because there's 100 other companies trying to do energy storage with their own idea, right? So is this the
Yeah,
one that's gonna, save the day? I
yeah,
don't know. But
yeah. Looks like I could do a quick Google. Looks like there's a lot of company actually started working on it. It's like almost like 99 companies try to do this.
yeah, no,
Then it means,
energy storage in general is actually a huge like because everyone knows it's gonna be one of those things that's huge, right? Because we already have cheap like solar panels and
hmm,
windmills.
hmm,
So it's like energy storage is the other factor, right? If you can get an effective, cheap energy storage, you now have a cost-effective system, right? Very cost-effective. So it's a big thing. And it's energy storage is like on a physical level, there's a lot of ways to do it, right? It's kind of like a fundamental thing that has a lot of options. So we've talked about some of them in the past, like you can, have traditional batteries. You can have these sort of large liquid batteries. You can store, you can lift up weight for potential energy. You can pump compressed air underwater for
hmm.
potential energy for like offshore windmills. Heat batteries are obviously one. People have talked about just taking old car batteries once they're done, just wiring them up and a bunch of them in a big bank because, people don't want them anymore. So just reuse them. Lots of ideas out there.
Hmm.
I think I even saw people say they should use a flywheel for mechanical storage. So get a really frictionless flywheel that they spin up. And I'm like, this is crazy, right? Like this cannot be the best way to store energy, but I haven't looked into it in that much detail. So, maybe there's a reason it's good. Maybe there's a specific application where a giant flywheel is the correct way to store energy, but
Hmm.
uh,
Okay. Yeah, it was just different way of transferring energy, like store it. Like if you can if you get frictionless one, yeah, of course it's like it's a
yeah.
perpetual energy, whatever. perpetual energy generation machine, something like that.
Perpetual motion generator? No,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
No, their flywheel would definitely lose energy over time. So do these heat batteries. So do regular batteries, right? Like, I mean, if you
Hmm.
have like a lithium ion battery, it slowly leaks current, It's not a big deal though. You don't lose much. And again, there's lots of these things are fine over the course of like a few days, which is really what we need it, right? None of these are aiming for storing energy for like the winter from summer. It's storing energy from Monday for Wednesday when it's cloudy, or
Mm,
for Monday night when the sun's not out anymore. That's what people are aiming for. But
got you. Yeah.
mm,
So because disadvantage of this heat battery is they don't storage for long term, not like traditional batteries.
yeah, I mean I don't think it's going to be as good for like if you need it weeks in advance
Hmm.
or weeks later. I
Yeah.
think that's fair.
At least for
Um,
now. Yeah.
yeah.
Maybe we get it in the future.
I don't know. There's always for all these things, like you can be like, oh, this works, right? But like exactly how much does it cost,
Hmm.
versus how much it can store, so
Hmm.
how much price per, kilowatt you're storing, kilowatt hour. How much does it cost to maintain it? What's the maintenance it needs? How
Yeah.
long does it last before you need to replace it? There's a lot of practical questions that say, okay, this is like a clever physics idea. Um, but does it really work out? Now, in
Yeah.
my head, a block of graphite seems like a very simple device. So, does it need much maintenance? Do you have to replace it? I don't know. Doesn't seem like it'd be too bad, but there could be things I'm not thinking about, right? Like maybe the material degrades in some way when it keeps getting heated and then cooled over time,
Hmm.
and that causes a problem. So, if in 3 years you need to get a new one, maybe it's not cost effective, right? So,
Mm.
I don't
What
know.
about the mining of graphite? Are they just everywhere
I mean,
cheap?
graphite's just carbon, right? So it's a form of carbon.
Okay.
So I think I don't know honestly the details of how do you get or make graphite, but I think it's readily available. I don't think this is like lithium or something.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah. So like I mean I think coal and wood, yeah, I mean any carbon can be turned into graphite. I don't know what the cost effective way is, but yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Hmm.
That said, if you're going to ask me which energy storage is the smartest, I would actually go with the recycle electric car batteries to be used as a giant energy bank because that seems like such a smart, cost-effective way to create a
Hmm.
massive battery bank. But this one's cooler, so that's why I wanted to talk about it.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, actually,
Mm.
I never heard of this one before, so like, so it's quite interesting. Like
Ha-
using storage
Yeah.
heat, which makes sense. Any you can storage, energy in different in any form you want, right? Yeah, and like batteries
hmm
and chemical, I guess chemical reactions, right?
hmm Yep.
All right, or giant flywheel, I guess, too.
Mhm.
Giant flywheel. Yeah. Mechanical.
Mhm.
Kinetic, right? Potential energy is not good enough. Kinetic energy is how you got to store it.
Yeah, or
No,
maybe
yeah,
like Matrix human bodies.
that's just chemical in a more complicated form factor.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah, I don't know. Not to repeat myself too much, but I think what sold me as interesting, or maybe makes this like a better deal than other heat batteries, is again the effective way of going straight to, not straight, but converting to electricity without a turbine and a water and all
Yeah.
that stuff.
So
Um,
yeah, one thing you mentioned earlier is a lot of government, like the Inflation Reduction Act has a lot of like government incentive or investment into like this green tech stuff. But I guess when I heard that is why my first thing come to mind is that is it gonna be wasteful, right? And I mean the government program that invests in anything is it gonna be does it actually help industry ever?
that is an open question. So I think I have
Mm,
seen critics say that, yeah, you're going to help develop this industry using, tax incentives and other stuff. But once you remove it in like 10 years, is it going to be self-sustaining afterwards, right?
mm-hmm,
Um, and then, and is it worth it? I think the thought is, one, it's sort of like more like an investment for the future in the sense that, climate change is going to cause damage that will cost us in the future anyway. So money invested now that helps reduce how much bad it gets is going to be like pay off later. And a lot of these techs, are it's kind of assumed that a lot of this is going to become the future of like energy anyway, separate from climate change. It's just going to become more cost effective to get free sunlight than try to dig for oil and natural gas, right? Like we continue to grab the easiest oil and natural gas we can. So it's just consistently gets harder, right? And we make technological improvements that to get us more in terms of drilling, but it's always going to keep getting harder because it's not being replaced. So it's one of these things. It's an investment. How the industry plays out in 10 years, there are definitely some people who are concerned about that, but there's other people who will assume that this is a growing industry and this will be like a kickstart to help boost it, right? And
Yeah. Well,
oil.
I'm not worried about. I'm not worried about like government experimenting, right? I guess the main concern is like is it wasteful money? A lot of the time, the government program just like then the money just go to like certain company has relationship with the government, right? Like
I
with
see, I see.
the senators and representative, they all these money they don't go to truly innovative companies that actually deserve the money. They usually like funnel to friends of the whatever. Like it's kind of bribery in a way, but it's a different way, right? So
Yeah, yeah.
right.
I
So
see that. That can be a problem. I mean, it's still relatively early. I don't think there's been like much. I think there are people who have like maybe been given like allocated some of the money and, starting to proposals and stuff. I don't know. I don't think much has been built based on the IRA's funding yet because it's,
mm,
hasn't been that long. Um, so I think it's just something we'll have to see. Hopefully it goes to some real usage. Something I've heard of is making, I think they called it the battery belt, which is like there's different proposed locations of facilities along the southeast to like mine stuff and like construct batteries and like recycle them and other things. Um,
mm,
so it seems like I've seen sort of talk about what seem like real projects to do, important things because batteries are going to be important going in the future, but
mm-hmm.
I don't know. We'll see.
Got you. What's the battery belt?
It's just a term I don't
No, no,
remember a
where
lot of
is it? I mean,
it's in
where's
the
the belt?
southeast.
Oh, okay,
I think Georgia's part of it.
okay.
Is the
Hmm.
supposed like, you know, let's see. I mean, if you go, yeah, I'm Googling battery belt, let's see where exactly they're putting it.
You're not using OpenAI?
Am I just, no, I didn't give it to ChatGPT. This might be too new of a term. I don't know if the models are trained up on it. Let's see. Announced gigafactories, operational gigafactories. Actually, okay, there is some in Georgia, but it's actually not, it looks like there's more kind of hits up into the Rust Belt some in too, but it's sort of spread out. It's not that, I guess it's not that concentrated yet, but there's
Okay,
yeah. But they're building a bunch of new battery facilities and stuff, so we'll
cool.
see. Okay, we ready for the last one?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so the last one. Now this is not energy, but water. Okay. Uh, Now water, is pretty important. You may have heard that due to climate change, some places are having struggling access to fresh water. So
Mm,
y'all know about desalination, right?
Hmm.
You take ocean water, you either evaporate it or pump it through some filters, and you get out the salt so you can use it.
mm,
And there's a couple problems with desalination. One, it generally takes a lot of energy or a lot of filter resources for like to replace filters as they get clogged up. And it also produces this really concentrate. So you get fresh water, and then you also get really concentrated brine, like super salty water that kind of
Hmm.
kills the ocean when it gets pumped back in. So you kind of sort of have to like fuck up a section of the ocean to like get this. Okay.
oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So desalination, some places do it, but it's generally not considered like it's not like a great solution, right? But there are
Basically, just
places,
turning seawater into drinking water.
yeah.
Okay.
And there's a lot of places that have coastline but not freshwater access. So this is not like an uncommon situation where they might want to do this, but it's not ideal. Now, y'all are familiar with a dehumidifier, right? It
Mm-hmm.
literally pulls water out of the air, the dehumidifier's intent is to lower the humidity. Your air conditioner does the same thing, sort of incidentally, right? The air conditioners produce condensated water, and there's machine devices that are, rather than trying to dehumidify for the purpose of giving you dry air, there are machines that do it as a way of producing fresh water. Because compared to, say, desalination via evaporating water, the humidity in the air is already evaporated, so you have a large portion of the job's already done. Now, the problem with these is it's very dependent on the having very humid air, right?
Yeah.
If your air is not that humid, you don't get a lot of use out of it. And it turns out a lot of the places without fresh water are sort of like deserts, deserty areas that don't have particularly humid climates, right? So it
Right.
makes it not very effective. So these guys have proposed, I don't know if they started building it, but they have at least a very detailed proposal that have done like a lot of like the calculations, the math and engineering design for what's called an ocean vapor tower. And here's what they do. They realize that right on top of the ocean is a layer of air that's essentially 100% humidity, because the sun heats up the water, and that's where all the humidity in the environment comes from, pretty much, right?
Mm.
Water evaporating off the air. Now, here's some other fun contributions. Again, a lot of the places that don't have fresh water have coastline. They're also hot. Hot means there's a lot of this evaporation coming off. So the idea is you put one of these dehumidifiers, except instead of being like a household device, it's like a tower, right on the ocean surface, and cycle air through, and you can extract the humidity in the water, in the air, right off the ocean. Now, you also have, usually this can involve like pressurizing and cooling it to try to get the humidity to change the dew point of the air. You also potentially have the colder ocean, right? You have hot air. You have the colder ocean right below you, which could potentially be used to help condensate and turn that into like water. Since the ocean is massive, there's essentially an unlimited amount of infinite humidity, right? Like there's just so much coming off, right? And as climate change continues, the world gets warmer, oceans get warmer, the amount that they have evaporating into humidity is going to increase. So it's one of these things. It's none of this there's no new technology here, right? Like we've had dehumidifiers for a long time. People are just using it, but someone's just like, hey, what if we put this right on top of like the ocean surface? Actually would make it like vastly more effective. And it's kind of like a desalination plant, except you don't produce brine, and you don't have, like, you skip the hardest part, right? It's already in the air. You don't have to do something to heat up. You don't have to heat up the ocean water or use expensive filters. You just grab the already pure water in the air. All you have to do is condense it, which isn't nothing. That takes some energy. You got to do some work, but it's very viable. So, they made some calculations, like by building like large scale towers, they can produce like a lot of water. And they're like, oh, you could solve, like, there are countries where they're like, you could basically solve their freshwater crisis by like building like 9 of these, and you'd like have enough fresh water for the entire country. And like I said, and the way these work ideally, and a lot of the real places that have struggled with fresh water in terms of having like hot, deserty coastline with salty water, like that's the ideal sort of like setup for them.
Right.
So this could be a game changer in terms of, it's not climate change exactly, but in terms of, having people have fresh water without having to do using a lot more resources, maybe. So it does connect a little bit, but it's a pretty clever idea. And it was like I said, it's kind of like sitting there right in your face, right? Like, I guess I didn't really know, but it's sort of intuitive that, like, of course, like the ocean, and it's going to be humid right above it, right? Because you have a lot of water evaporating there directly into the air. And that's just going to make something like a dehumidifier basically much more effective at producing water.
No, I mean, it makes sense, but when you say tower, I guess I'm wondering, like, what
I
does
think there are
this actually
proposals
look?
like yeah, I think there are proposals like 100 feet wide and some hundreds of feet, or 100 feet tall and like hundreds of feet wide, like that sort of scale. Not that you'd have to build it that big, right? Like I said, these things aren't built yet. So maybe there's challenges that no one's realized are there yet, but it seems like something that's very viable, right? Like
Yeah.
we definitely could make it. Is there things that make it not cost effective, right? The
Hmm.
obvious one is probably like ocean's kind of a rough environment to build in. Saltwater is not great for materials. Waves and storms happen. So you
Yeah.
have to have something pretty tough just to exist in the ocean. But I mean, we have, you know, deep ocean. I mean, you have drilling platforms in the ocean. We have windmills in the ocean, right? Like we build stuff in the ocean. So yes, it's challenging, but it's definitely not impossible. Like we do it. So
Yeah.
it can be overcome.
I'm just wondering like how high up this, humid enough air goes, or, like where I guess, yeah, the cost, like if the thing can sort of, yeah, draw from air, 50 feet up, then I could see that working. But if it's like right at the surface is where like sort of the air is that's gonna like
Ideal. Yeah.
give you the bang for your buck, then maybe it just isn't cost effective enough. But yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I'm sure they've studied that. Like, I don't have any idea of like what the humidity changes as you go up in the ocean. I'm pretty
Mhm.
sure you get at least a few feet of like
Yeah.
very humid, and that might be all you need, right? Because the
Mhm.
intakes are all on the bottom, and you basically have some fans to help cycle air through, right? And you're
Yeah, that
intaking
makes
right
sense.
there. And oceans usually have breezes, convenient, helpful
Right.
for this
Yeah.
problem.
Right. Yeah, it sort
So,
of is like a free way to cycle air. Yeah.
yeah, so it's just this could be potentially. I mean, if you had told me it was a greater or less than 50% odds, this becomes like a major thing that's used, I'd say less than 50%. But I still think this has a decent chance of being like one of those like, oh shit, becomes a very important thing for a lot of places because there are
Yeah.
places that already rely on desalination, which on paper seems worse.
Yeah, no, a lot of people, I mean, I feel like a lot of people talk about California and the issues with drought and wildfire and everything else they have. And yeah, I mean, like a lot of people, there's been proposals like just put a massive desalination plant off the coast because like they have the Pacific. But obviously this would be better, I guess, because yeah, I didn't even necessarily think about the brine issue. I mean, I know energy is an issue with desalination, but I guess. Yeah, extra salty water kills fish. So
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm. So is this, I guess, it's you're saying that they are not commercially available or viable yet?
It's not
Mostly just idea now.
built, yeah, yeah. From what I understand, researchers did it very. This isn't like just someone's like napkin sketch. Like there was like
Mm-hmm.
funded research to do like a bunch of feasibility studies and like do designs and simulations and calculations. So like
Mm-hmm.
it was like a serious study, but they haven't like built the tower yet. But this is a proposal that I assume was going to be built, and then they'll test it, and if it works well, then there'll be the next stage would be to try to commercialize it and build factories that build multiple of these and stuff. So there's steps. This isn't going to be something that's here like in 2026, I don't think.
Mm.
But going forward, for places like California, has a lot of coastline, doesn't have a lot of fresh water, or at least have enough fresh water. So,
hmm
Okay.
yeah. And I think they did something. They're like, is this gonna, you're taking humidity out of the air, right? So it's kind of like, is this gonna make your climate even drier? Because you're sucking up humidity and that doesn't become rain eventually. But like if you do the math, it's such a tiny percent, right? The world's oceans are absolutely enormous. So the amount you're skimming off the top is so little, right?
Mm.
Like you would have to build such a ridiculous amount of these to like have, to hit 0.1% of the humidity being evaporated off the ocean. It's absurd, right? Oceans are really, really big
Yeah.
and they're constantly being beamed with sunlight and heated and air and water is, separating and turning into gas. So
Mm. Well, you did mention that for this to work better, actually, you need more global warming.
it helps. Well, it's kind of one of those things that like it sort of makes the process more efficient. At least you have more humidity coming off the ocean. I
Uh-huh.
don't know about the other parts. That's going to make it harder to condense it down, but
Gotcha.
I don't know what their plans are. Like, I'm not sure exactly how. There's different ways you can condense water. How are they trying to do it?
Okay.
There's probably going to be different designs thrown around,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah.
All
So,
right.
people talked about, I'll summarize. I've seen people talk about like, oh, in the future, there's going to be water wars, right? Like we're going to run out of fresh water and the world's going to fight over water. It's going to be
hmm
the big thing. Maybe, or maybe we just built these towers and that solves the problem.
Okay. I do have one more. So one question about the green technology in general. Um, what is I guess the core problems on this technology I try to solve?
I mean, most of them are trying to solve uh, CO2 in the atmosphere. So the main problem is humans are burning a lot of fossil fuels
Hmm.
for energy. That's our main source of energy. And that has powered sort of civilization. So you don't want to knock it too bad. But the CO2, we are increasing the amount of CO2 in our atmosphere a lot, which makes our makes the climate hotter.
Hmm.
CO2 causes this is like, climate change 101.
Yeah.
CO2 traps heat that would have been emitted into space, kind of like our graphite battery emits energy
Hmm.
as infrared radiation. The Earth does that as well. And the more CO2 we have, the less of that goes out into space, and the more that's actually captured and reflected back to store it. So it heats up the planet. Now, the planet has mechanisms that naturally balance and stabilize the amount of CO2 in the atmosphere, okay? Because the planet Earth has had higher amounts of CO2 in the past after like cataclysmic events like giant super volcanoes and stuff have like released a bunch. But those cataclysmic events have caused the atmosphere to get way hotter, and they've caused it, oceans to acidify, and they killed most life on Earth. Not all of it, but they killed like a ton of the species, and this became like a mass extinction event, and then over millions of years, that CO2 gets sequestered through processes, mostly like in the ocean, and it kind of stabilizes again and becomes hospitable, and then life blooms again. So this is sort of, this is a pattern that in Earth's history we've seen a few times where sort of big spikes in CO2 have been associated with some cataclysmic event and caused a mass extinction. So what we want to avoid is humans being the cause of the next spike in CO2 that causes a mass extinction event.
Mm.
Right now, we are emitting it way faster than the Earth's natural processes can, capture it. So that's why there's this sort of like net zero goal, because even people want to afterwards, people would like to say eventually say, hey, can we take carbon out of the atmosphere to sort of get us back to like closer to where we were before. But even if we just sort of net zero ourselves, the Earth will start to stabilize and sequester carbon through natural processes. Um, but yeah, that's sort of the climate change one. So most companies for green tech are around that. So either energy generation, energy storage are the big two, because that's the majority of our carbon output is for energy.
Hmm.
There's a few other cases. Cement actually emits a lot of carbon in the chemical process that cement is made. So some people are looking at alternative cements or alternative ways to do stuff. There's some stuff like landfills emit methane,
Mm.
which is much more, you have a lot less methane than CO2, but it's much more stronger as a greenhouse gas in terms of how much heat it traps. So there are and like the water thing is kind of more like there's also companies that are working on things that solve the issues climate change is going to cause. Because climate change is happening. It's going to happen. We want to stop it from being super bad, but it's definitely going to happen. And there's going to be problems caused by it. So there's also companies that are basically looking at how are we going to mitigate the damage, minimize and handle the effects of it, without having a bunch of people die, generally the thing they're trying to avoid. So
Mm.
yeah,
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Thanks for the climbing 101, which is I'm very ignorant of. So
gotta gotta get educated, shoot. Come on.
that's why we're here.
Gotta stop watching Joe Rogan and just get us.
I don't watch Joe Rogan. I listen to Joe Rogan,
Fair enough. Fair
which
enough.
is even worse. Actually, no, I don't follow. Actually, yeah. So, so yeah, and I guess my last question, I mentioned it to you before previously, is like, so you can get prepared. So, are the electrical vehicles really good for the environment?
So really good question. And the answer is yes, with an asterisk. Okay. Okay. So when I've mostly because there's kind of both sides, like left and right, if we just broadly group people, sort of sometimes view electrical cars as negative,
Yeah.
for different reasons. I think the majority of the criticism over electric cars that I've seen comes from sort of people who sort of either don't believe in or trying to downplay climate change, and then they sort of just it's kind of like that sort of team mentality that like I'm against climate change or green stuff, so I'm going to be against electric cars. So they sort of say like, oh, electric cars aren't even good for the environment, which is wrong. In terms of CO2 output, electric cars do significantly less than gas cars. Now, it's not zero. So let's break this down a little bit. Gas cars, when a gas car is manufactured, there's emissions due to the manufacturing. So that's like the cost, the energy that used to refine the materials, the energy used to actually build the car, all that stuff that in terms of making it has sort of energy, and that energy emitted CO2. So there's sort of like this, you can sort of calculate up like how much CO2 it costs to make the car. And then there's how much CO2 it emits for being used, primarily due to what they call tailpipe emissions, which is literally what's shot out the back as you run the gas in it.
Mm-hmm.
For a gasoline car, the large majority of the emissions are tailpipe, or the large majority of the CO2 over its lifetime are tailpipe emissions. So burning gas is what the majority of it is. So the electric car, now there's two things people bring up. They're both true. One, electric cars actually take more energy to manufacture. So sort of the amount of CO2 emitted just for making them is higher. Two, when you use electricity, we're still primarily burning fossil fuels to generate that electricity. So there's CO2 associated with that as well. However, even taking all those things into effect, electric cars still over their lifetime come out pretty far ahead. So when a new electric car will have had more CO2 emitted, but we don't get all our electricity from fossil fuels. We actually have a decent portion is from nuclear and renewables, and that portion is growing every year. In general, even for stuff that's like made like a natural gas plant is more efficient than your own personal engine in terms of just burning and capturing energy. So overall, every mile you drive, the electric car emits less CO2, significantly lower tailpipe emissions. So, it depends on the car and the study, but I think the worst case I've seen is that over their entire lifetime, an electric car will emit half the CO2 of this gas car. And I think some of the other estimates are more like a fourth of it or even better. And in general, whatever that exact number it is, it's only going to keep improving. That is, electric cars will continue to have a better sort of lower total carbon footprint than gasoline cars. Again, as our energy grid gets better, as our things like we get lithium battery recycling, which there are plants being built in the US to recycle lithium batteries,
Mm-hmm.
which would make the energy cost for building an electric car lower because you would be able to recycle some of these materials instead of having to like mine and refine them from scratch. So like that sort of stuff will actually also lower the sort of CO2 to build it. So as these things progress, electric cars are already better in terms of CO2 output, and they're going to continue to get better. So do they help significantly for reducing our amount of CO2 output? Yes. Transportation in the US is a pretty big portion of our CO2 output. Cars emit a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the majority, but it's a big chunk. Now, there's another way to look at it though, which is, do we need them? Could we better solve the problem by not using cars as much? And I think for a lot of cases that is true. So when it comes to like cities, there's a lot of cases where it might make more sense just to not use cars than to build electric cars. And there's
Mm-hmm.
people that will say electric cars aren't built to save the environment, they're built to save the car industry, which is some truth. And I agree with this as someone who lives in a city and doesn't use a car, rarely uses a car, that we could build our cities to not need them. And I actually think it makes things more convenient. But as a side note, and it saves a bunch of money for the city, but it also reduces your carbon emissions a ton if you can live like that. But let's just be honest, we might be able to decrease the amount people use their cars, but at least in America, there's no time anytime soon we are going to eliminate the need of cars, right? There's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of areas in the US, the majority of them, you're going to need a car, and that won't be changing anytime soon. So they are still an important piece of the puzzle, essentially. Like that electric cars might be how we chunk down 20, 25% of our like overall emissions, something like that in that range. And that's a pretty big part, right? And if you do that, and then you chunk down another 25% because we're now using almost all renewable energy, and we come up with some solution for concrete, suddenly we've got like the large majority of our emissions down, and we're like, hey, we're making progress to actually solving this problem.
Mm.
So the electric car question is good. A lot of people bring that up. There are, there are environmental implications of electric cars, right? Mining lithium
Hmm.
isn't fantastic for the local environment where lithium's mined. Drilling for oil and natural gas isn't fantastic for the local environment either, right? There's nothing we do is perfect,
Hmm.
but there are most of these sort of green solutions are better, are significantly better than the alternative. So even if like, yeah, there might be some CO2 emitted, some pollution, it's still progress, right? You got to choose the lesser of two evils because there's usually
Mm.
not a perfect solution in real life. There's rarely just like a this solves everything and has no problem. So
Hmm.
so yeah, so
Okay.
I've talked an
Well,
awful lot on this
well, no.
podcast today.
Well, no, that was good because I had heard, it's like with the electric car thing, I obviously I've heard the argument like, well, it's just like, the electricity is generated through fossil fuels anyway, so it's like not
Hmm.
making any difference. So I was curious what the carbon cost was of an electric car versus not an electric, so that was good.
Yeah, it's a real
So,
thought. A lot of people have done the math and it still comes out way ahead. So it's like, okay,
okay.
cool story.
Hmm.
So when
Yeah.
people bring that up, I think a lot of people don't bring that up in good faith. They're not like climate activists concerned. They're,
Yeah.
people who don't want electric cars because they like their gas car and they're like, I'm
Right.
gonna pretend they're worse for the environment as a way to sort of like defend my gasoline car.
Hmm. Gotcha. Well, but to be fair, the math are done by probably people now uh confirming their bias, right?
Possibly. I mean, there's
I mean, they
definitely
bias toward the green tech, so they probably do the math and make some assumptions that may come out. Yeah.
Yeah,
it, it's
well,
it is possible, but it's not like one person did it, right? Like a lot of people have done it. They're published, peer-reviewed work. You can look up how they did it yourself. And I feel like if someone had like got them on like you forgot to include this, that's why it worse. I feel like they would, have come out and said it. The
Hmm.
oil and gas industry would be like, hey, look, guys, the electric cars are worse. I'm pretty sure they would have that, you know, be advertising that result, but I haven't heard of
Hmm.
anyone being able to produce that as like a coherent, like actual study, right? Like actually being like, hey, here's a real way to calculate this that's accurate. It
and
can be
Hmm.
tricky to sort of try to include everything into, every little piece into sort of the carbon budget of how something's made, right?
Hmm.
It's not easy, so there is some differences to methodology, but like if you do use the same methodology for gas and electric, and you try to get most things, I think you can get a pretty fair representation. I'm not going to say, they're 4 times better or some precise number. I just
right.
think if you look at it, they're clearly better, and it doesn't take much logic to realize they're going to continue to improve even more. So,
Yeah, where you said it was like half the carbon costs, like that's I mean that's a big gap that you would have to close if you're going to argue electric cars are not better at all. Like if you had just said, "Oh, they're significantly better in these studies," I would have been like, "Well, like significantly better sometimes is
it's
like
like
you."
10%, but it's
Yeah,
statistically, yeah, yeah, yeah. No,
yeah.
and half was probably the most like conservative estimate I saw.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
definitely a lot of estimates that are higher. It's tricky, right? Because there's a lot of new electric trucks coming out. They're really big, they're really heavy. They might not be much better than a small old gas car, maybe a little bit, but like maybe not that much. Because if they're 4 times as heavy as some tiny old car that gets like 45 miles on a gallon, you know,
Mm.
maybe it's not as big a thing. But I think a more fair comparison is okay, well, what if you compare those to a really big gas truck, right? Because that's kind of like the fair, matchup, right?
Hmm.
And then you kind of get back to it. So, if you're going to buy a big truck anyway, it's going to have more of an impact. It's probably still net better to if you go electric. But
Yeah.
No.
Hmm. Okay. Sounds good.
so you're going to sell your gasoline car now, Shu?
No, I love my combustion engine.
Are you
The
going to put a
sound.
solar panel on your house? I just explained to you how we're going to kill ourselves with
Uh,
climate change. No.
Actually, I did. I was looking at like Cybertruck, like Tesla size truck. It looks pretty cool. Like even though it's weird, it's like actually that's why I kind of just looking at like Tesla stock too. And it's okay, it's weird, it's divisive. That means it's good, right? Because especially when it's weird, like it's divisive. That means nobody agrees. It's a good product.
Hmm.
Um, yeah. So also Cybertruck just looks good. Also, they're coming out with like cheaper model of like EVs. So even if I'm thinking of getting a next car, right, I would probably get EV, the Tesla, to balance out right, my combustion engine, my guilt.
What
But
about you, Mike? You're about to buy a Cybertruck?
No. I mean, I don't know. I would get a Tesla maybe, but I
mhm.
don't know. It's an expensive car. Like I don't drive that much. I mean, I am like one of the like because I do mostly city driving now, so which is just sitting there burning gasoline. But
Like in a stoplight or something or
yeah,
traffic?
yeah. But
Yeah,
like I
I
also I'm a walker, so I
mm.
try to do my part by walking. So
that's fair.
Yeah, because you both of you guys living in cities,
yeah.
Yeah,
not like
no.
me living in the middle of nowhere in Indiana.
Yeah, that's fair. Like if you're out in rural or even like low density suburbs, like you can't avoid it, right? You have to drive.
Yeah.
But a lot of people move. It's crazy. They're like in a very dense city and they're like, I want a car and a parking spot. And it's like, forget about the environment. I'm like, just the cost and hassle at this point. Like depending
Mm,
on the city, right? Atlanta's more car based, more car friendly than others. But
Mm.
there's people in Manhattan who want their car, and it seems crazy, but they do it. So
I pay basically $1,000 a month to have it sit there or whatever.
yeah, and they'll use
Uh,
it, and it's getting traffic. I don't know. It's like doesn't
uh,
seem like this is a thing, but
uh.
yeah, I don't
All
know.
right.
Going back
So
a topic. Oh, sorry. You can go, Shu.
no, just another just follow-up question to that Tesla actually, because I'm interested in Tesla. So, do you think Tesla is a what kind of company is it? Is it a car company, or is it energy company, or is it a AI company?
Oh damn.
I would call it a car cup. Tesla,
Uh,
a car company primarily. Is like the solar roof and the battery stuff, is that
Solar
also
City?
under Tesla or is that under a
Yes.
different
Yeah.
company?
It's, Solar City is bought by Tesla.
Okay.
Well, it was Elon Musk's brother's company. So,
Mm. Because I know he has that stuff, but it's sometimes hard to keep up with. I don't
mhm.
keep up with like is the Neuralink is Tesla or is it a different company? Is
No, different
SpaceX
company. Different
SpaceX is a
company.
different company, but yeah, but like the battery system, for the Teslas, like I don't know what is what company.
Oh yeah, yeah. So he had multiple, and there's Boring Company, which is like making tunnels, and then Neuralink,
Yeah.
right? Which I was surprised that the Mike did not brought a Neuralink because I think they just do implement something
Oh
human something.
yeah.
So maybe we can save it for next time.
oh
And
We've
then
yeah,
the
already
I'll
other
talked.
have to
the other
I
one, he started a new AI company called X.AI. They a model called Grok, the Grok.
He called it X.
Grok X.AI. Actually
Does he have other names?
yeah.
he has X.com. That's his favorite letter. So so
Okay, okay.
yeah. So there's a other company. What other company they have? The Boring, SpaceX, all the other stuff. Yeah. So
Yeah,
yeah.
what which
Twitter, of
which
course.
company is making
That's,
their humanoid robot? Is that Tesla or is that a different company?
Tesla.
of
Okay,
Tesla.
course
so
that's that.
Tesla kind of covers a few things.
Yeah,
And then they have
Tesla. Yes.
okay.
So Tesla is making the Optimus humanoid, actually doing quite impressive. No, remember when we first came out, we talked about it and announced we were actually I mean, particularly you were making fun of it. So
I was. Well, to be fair, I was making fun of what they said they were going to do in a year.
well,
And it's
yeah,
been a couple years and it's not doing what they said, which
yeah,
is fair. But
yeah,
they might get
yeah,
there eventually. I guess assumedly everyone knew their
mm,
what they told us was bullshit in terms of like what they're going to be able to
yeah,
do and how fast. But maybe they will get there eventually, which would be
hmm
cool.
yeah,
Um, you know, Elon likes to hype things up, right? Mars 20, we were going hitting Mars in what, 2020?
hmm
When were we supposed to be on Mars? I forget.
I think it was Mars 2020. I think that was the name of the thing. Yeah.
Well, it
So
depends, right?
yeah,
That's how you build a company in general, right? You
that's
want
fair.
people to believe your mission, so you can actually. Now, a lot of people is like, I mean, a lot of these engineers has options, right? Now, you have good option to do other stuff, right? If you don't, it's not just for. Oh, I guess the hierarchy of needs, right? When you get to a certain point, you want to do something that you think is meaningful, right?
That's true. So
hmm
I'm just defending myself in that I was right about the Optimus robot in terms of what he said. Now, if he was secretly knew it was going to take 5+ years, not one, then that's
Yeah.
fine. And then he
Mm.
knew then he knew he was saying propaganda for advertisement, and he doesn't care about some guy no one listens to saying this is bullshit because it doesn't matter to him. I'm
Yeah.
not important.
Okay.
Elon doesn't care what I say.
Yeah. Oh,
I'll
going back to my question, I was just thinking about like, oh, it's Tesla, is it energy company? If it's energy company, you might need to evaluate value in the company differently, right? Now you have everybody gonna get a Tesla battery in their house, and it's gonna be maybe is yeah,
Tesla solar roof, Tesla battery, Tesla car,
yeah,
all
yeah,
connected. Yeah, maybe.
yeah.
People talk
Even
about how
mm,
Tesla's really overvalued by comparing it to other car companies and like
mhm.
the stock versus how much cars they actually sell every year. But maybe if you think of it as like an energy company that could be producing sort of like the new standard of like an interconnected energy system for every house and vehicle,
Mhm.
potential.
Okay. All
All
right.
I was gonna say is the Cybertruck. I feel like a lot of people shit on it for how it looks, but I have to admit, initially I was a little like but after like seeing it for a little bit, it kind of grew on me. I was like,
Yeah.
once I got used to it, I'm like, it's actually kind of cool looking. I can't lie. I
Yeah.
think
No
it
one
is.
but yeah, what I was looking at is like the whole reason I was looking for Tesla.com, I was just like Cybertruck came out. Okay, how much is it? It looks pretty cool. Yeah.
It's interesting. I guess, stereotype being like sci-fi is
Yeah,
very
yeah.
sci-fi-ishy, right? And I'm like,
Yeah.
that's cool. I've heard bad things about it now that people are starting to get them.
Mhm.
Like in terms of, especially in terms of the steel frame, apparently it's like rusting and a pain to sort of maintain.
Yeah. Okay.
But I don't know. We'll see longer term. I guess we'll see exactly how good of a truck it turns out to be, but it does kind of look cool.
Mhm. All right. Anything for you, Mike?
No, I was just Googling Neuralink, so I want to actually better understand it before I go into it. But
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah. No, no. We will talk about it next time then.
yeah,
I mean, as a mini topic.
that was a good point, Shu, because I had seen some of the news about that. It kind of slipped my mind. You should definitely
Yeah.
bring it up, Mike.
I was surprised Mike
yeah.
didn't get to it. So.
Yeah, no. I did hear about it, but I have not like it's someone controlling a mouse with their brain. But
Mm.
I'm curious.
Spoilers.
Yeah,
Spoilers.
spoilers, yes, but I'm curious if because there's like a very thing there's a thing that's been around for decades where like we've seen people like spell with like their brain before and like spell out words and like write and things like that. And it just uses like I know there's like was a very early technique introduced that basically was like, hey, like we'll put an EEG that isn't in your like actually in your head, like but on top of your head. And basically there's this like well-known response in like the parietal lobe, like when a certain stimulus is presented. So they would show like letters on screens, and like when the letter you wanted to spell would come up, like this response could be reliably detected like 200 like 2 or 300 milliseconds after it was presented. So they could essentially have people who were paraplegics or quadriplegics like spelling using these EEGs. So I guess I'm curious if, I mean, Neuralink has a much denser like overview of the area, so it may use like actual like more like I'm guessing it uses like machine learning and more like complex techniques, um but yeah, I'll look into it and see. It's probably also totally private and doesn't say
No.
anywhere what the underlying stuff is, but I can
Yeah.
look. So
Well,
Yeah.
maybe it's a full topic, not a mini topic. We'll
yeah.
see.
You just you don't need to go detail, just the basics, right?
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
that's fair. I can look at a.
Or just cover the cool. I don't know. No.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
What happened?
um,
Yes. So I'll have a
yeah,
more comprehensive overview
yeah, stay
next
tuned for
time.
next time.
Yeah.
For the
So, so is there anything else from you, Shu?
That's it. Just a final quote, I guess, to end this. Do you have anything? Do we have anything else before we end?
No, I think that's about it.
All right. So yeah, the quote to end is so generally let me start with the quote first. The quote is, "One day you will wake up and there won't be any more time to do things you always wanted. Do it now." By Paulo Coelho, I think. Yeah, the author's name.
Mhm.
Do you remember this guy? Do you guys know this guy?
I don't think so.
Paulo Coelho. He has a pretty famous. He wrote a book called Alchemist. It's a very popular book. So it's a very easy read too, and it's anyway just a very good book. So if you haven't read it, you should read it too. Anyway, so I think this quote is just a reminder. I think I like to my idea of doing the end quote is just pick something that's a good reminder of
Mm-hmm.
something, right? So it's something we don't need to get discussed. Pretty much very self-explanatory, right? So
Mm-hmm.
anyway,
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a good one. I mean, I guess the less
that's
self-explanatory part
only
of it
kind
is
of
how do you prioritize what to do if assuming you have many things you want to do. But It's
yeah.
a, it's a topic for another day.
Do what you most wanted, I guess. What do you most want to do?
What you most want to do. That's
I guess it's very personal, yeah.
As
yeah.
with all things, there's a balance because there's some people who are uh don't do enough of delayed gratification, but this is kind of like saying delaying gratification too much is bad as well, right?
Hmm.
You don't have infinite time, so eventually you stop delaying and be gratified. I don't know.
Oh yeah. And I think I mentioned last time, like knowing the what you want is one of the biggest problems like we have, right?
Hmm.
I mean, it's a very important thing to figure out in the first place so you can do it, right? I mean, in my problems, I'm still trying to figure out, right? So,
Yeah. Well, in a world where there's infinite choices,
mm,
I mean, that was I guess one of the benefits, quote unquote, of living like long, long ago is there's sort of, you know, there wasn't that many choices. It was like, yeah, well, you can be a farmer or a blacksmith and you marry the girl down the block, you have kids, and if you get cut, you die. But so,
It's very, very accurate and nuanced view
yes,
of the past. I agree.
that's right. Yeah.
A
So,
long time ago, not we're going to keep adding on to this. A long time
yeah,
ago, Shu taught us how to make optimal decisions.
that's
And it
right.
was something like 30 to 40, you test 30, 40% of the way of the options, and after that you pick the best thing. So all you have to do is try like 35% of all jobs, all like 10,000 jobs.
Hmm.
And then you pick the favorite job after that, and you have your ideal job.
Right.
exactly.
It's that easy. Just a few hundred career switches to figure out exactly what you should do with your life.
Yeah.
Uh, well, it's sort of like I mean, you brought up simulated annealing earlier, so you can just so just do that. You can just change jobs rapidly at the beginning, like one day each. Then you
And then
like,
slow down.
yeah,
The seventh job that you try to get in like a week or two is going to be a
yeah,
tough sell. The boss is going to be like, I don't know. He's
Yeah.
like, well, that second job, their training material was really boring, and they said it was going to take 3 days to get through. So it's like, I'm not
yeah,
planning to be here that long. So
yeah, exactly. That would actually be sort of that's what we should make so we started with a game show, the Physical 100 or whatever. I think that would be a good game show, like or a good like sh like someone just I mean, I guess that guy used to do like tough jobs or whatever, but like if it was just like a person had to do like different jobs for like a week at a time
mm,
and he could give his, or he or she, the host, could give their perspective at the end of each season. Like, if I had to pick a job this season, this is the best one, and here's why. So,
Hmm.
it'd be interesting. It's hard. I feel like too many jobs require more specialized skill than you could get in a week to actually like do it.
no,
So,
that's fair. Yeah,
but yeah, I like the idea, even
yeah,
if it's impractical.
Hmm. You can pitch it to CBS.
that's all right. Yeah, I don't know when there used to be a time of year where people like writers would go out to Hollywood and pitch stuff. I don't remember when it was, but I'll have to go and pitch my.
You're a comedian. You need to find your connections.
That's all
For
right.
forget about CBS, Netflix, okay?
Yeah.
Professional 100. You get 100 different professionals and you have them compete to see what the best profession is. It's right
Right.
there.
Yeah.